Which takes me neatly then onto the question of due diligence, because when you're buying a property, there are a whole series of things that you should be checking out before you go ahead and sign a formal contract to buy. Would you like to just take us through some of the things that you as a lawyer would typically do to check out a property?
First, we'll be requesting a certificate from the land registry. This is in Spanish called like a nota simple. The nota simple, it could be extensive one, which is not of normal practice anymore, where you saw the history of that property from the legal point of view, the evolution of owners. This is not common anymore. You can see a nota simple, much more simple, but you know who is the owner. You know how the property is registered. So this is important because you have to see that the property that you were set by the brokers, that is 135 square meters with the 3-bedroom, is exactly 135 at the land registry and not 123, for instance.
Or that 3 bedrooms have been added to it without them registering it, for example.
Exactly. So it's very important to check. First, of course, you have to deal with the owner of the property. But second, the description of the property has got to be the same, identical to the one that you've been set by the owners to be. The third, of course, is checking that the property doesn't have any charges, liens, encumbrances, debts, mortgages, embargoes, so it's clean from this legal point of view. This part of the legal searches takes place at the very beginning, and in around 2 days' time, we have this picture already with us, because from the day that we apply the nota simple, this certificate, is normally given to us within the same working day.
Because this is all now done online.
Online.
Yes.
And once we get this, we know already that who is the owner. We know this picture very quickly. The following part of the legal searches takes more time because it's one at the town hall. At the town hall, you need to check that the property was permitted. So it's typically requested a copy of the planning permission. So you see that going back to the example of 135 square meters apartments, it was permitted to be built an apartment of 135 square meters with 3 bedrooms. Then you also request a copy of the license of first inhabitation or the license of first occupation. This means that the property was finished according to that license. When every new property is finished, you have to gather a number of certificates, a number of documents. Number one, that the architect will confirm that that property is being built according to that planning permission, according to that very project. And as well as certain installations and supplies bulletins, you apply to the town hall the license of first inhabitation. This is really, I want the town hall to inspect this property to see if I respected this license. If that is the case, and the building is in compliance with all the regulations, the license of first inhabitation is granted. And this is very important document to have. Planning permission, but very, very important, the license of first inhabitation. We also like to see as well that from the date that this license was granted, if we are talking about a property that could be a resale and was finished 10 years ago, the owner or the owners of that property within the last 10 years could do so many things. So we need to check that there is no extension of the house, that there is no an added piece of bedroom to the terrace and these type of things. And we request a certificate and a letter from the town hall that confirms that the property was permitted, that the property had license of first inhabitation, and the property still today is in order and meets all the legal requirements.
So with those two documents, the planning consent and the license of first occupation, you are pretty much secure that the property is legal.
Correct.
It's probably worth explaining, isn't it, that this is all important because until very recently it was very common in Spain for a developer to get permission to build 10 apartments of 50 square meters and then to build 10 apartments of 100 square meters without telling anybody. Or it's been common for people to add extra bedrooms to their houses and not register them. And if either of those things happen, that property is not legal and ultimately it could face demolition.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And the other thing that used to happen many, many times was someone would get a permission to renovate an old farmhouse maybe of 50 square meters, and then by the time the renovation had been finished, it had magically increased to 200 square meters and had a pool and a garage and various other things. You can't get away with that anymore. Those days have gone.
Those days are completely gone, and this is something that is coming up at our searches very quickly, because at the beginning I explained how you get a nota simple, and if you know that the property that you saw is 200 square meters with a swimming pool and a garage, and the nota simple and the information that is provided by the lawyer says that this is only a small house of 50 square meters, this means we can see that very quickly.
Yes.
There is a part of the legal searches in order to continue with that. Once we did the nota simple, once we did the part of the planning, there is also part of our searches what we say is a zoning. So people, and I think it's important you to know what is going to be permitted to be built around your property. So therefore, if the plot is surrounded by empty plots, we inform our clients this plot of land next door is permitted to be built single villas or block of apartments or hospital
farmland
or school or whatever.
Yes.
That's the part of the zoning. The community, we talked before about the community, is also important part, because the clients need to know what type of set of regulations, reglamento interno, have to be respected in that community, because that's important part. The clients want to buy legal property, but also with a peaceful community. We check also the accounts of the community in order to make sure that the economy of the community is run with efficiency and is a healthy community from financial point of view. And we also review the last 2 years of community general meetings, minutes, because that's important to know what's going on in that community. So that's where you see that every potential issue that has been happening within that community for years, how is that? Is there any pending court case with the neighbor? Is there any problem with the town hall that is claiming the replacing pipes and putting in another area? Is the community planning about renovating the elevators, and this is going to be costing? So this is important to be known upfront by the buyers of that property.
Yes.
And finally, make sure that the property owner, the seller, have paid everything in relation of that property. So which is taxes, the EB is the property tax that is paid once a year, the garbage collection tax. And we also like to check that the seller is up to date with the electricity, the water. Of course, it's got to be up to date with a community of owners.
So that's a lot of inquiries, and then in addition to those, individual clients may have individual requirements. For example, they may say, I'll only buy this property if I'm going to be able to install a swimming pool, or if I'm going to be able to convert it from a house into a restaurant, or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
So those are additional things that you would have to do for that particular client.
Yeah, correct.
What about due diligence about the condition of the property? In many countries, it is usual for houses to be surveyed when the person buys them, so that a professional goes in, checks the condition of the property and says, yes, this is okay, or you need to be aware that there's a problem here and a problem there. That's much less common in Spain, isn't it?
It's less common, but we can see that this is growing with the pass of the time.
As more and more foreign clients come to buy.
Survey was very rare to be seen 15 years ago. And surveys are becoming more and more popular, more and more common.
And there are lots of highly qualified and experienced surveyors of many nationalities operating here on the coast of Spain. So if you want a survey, it's easy to obtain.
Absolutely.
When it comes to surveys, what about the problems that you might have with, for example, someone still being in occupation of the property when you buy it? Would anyone check that to make sure that the old people have moved out before you move in?
Yes, this is something that, of course, they have to say in front of the notary, which is a very important commitment, because to make a false declaration in front of the notary could be considered something very serious in Spain. It could be even an offense.
Yes.
That the property is delivered vacant to the vendors, to the buyers, and the keys are handed over to the buyers, expressing the vendors that the property is vacant on that very moment. So that's when the payment of the price, the final payment of the price, takes place in front of the notary, and when the keys are delivered, either handed over to the buyers. But we also go to the property. We, as lawyers, I always thought that it was important to see that property. We are about to give a big check to the sellers, and our clients, in the very most of the cases, are not in Spain, and we go and we have a look. We make pictures of the whole property. We make pictures of the town water meter and electricity meter, because we take care of the changing the supplies into the name of the buyers, and we do that direct debit, so we know from which point we are responsible of the bills, obviously. And we check the keys, we check the remotes, and we make a report of pictures of that property that is very well received by our clients that cannot be attending completion that very day. This is all happening normally one day before completion. And yes, so we check ourselves as well that the property is vacant. That's something that we do.
I'm interested you do that, because I've always thought it was a good idea. And at the very least, the client himself should go to the property just before going to the notary to make sure that it hasn't burned down, or that there are not 20 people living in it.
Yeah.
What about the value of the property? I come here on vacation, I see a nice house, 500,000 euros, I say, yes, I'll have that. Do many of your clients say, I just need to be reassured that this is a true value? People would like to say, I want a second opinion to make sure I'm not paying too much. Is that common? Is it growing in popularity, or is it very rare?
It's rare. I wouldn't really say very, because you can see from time to time, but it's not very common. At the end, like I said, most of the clients are assisted by real estate professionals. That they are, their aim, of course, is really them to buy a property, and they are going to be touring the clients with different options and with different properties. Every property is in competition, and you do an offer, and you compare that asking price with so many other similar type of properties, that clients rarely request evaluation of the property. It's only done normally when there is a mortgage, because it's got to be done.
And so